It's time to begin our worship service this evening, our Bible study. If you did not pick up a newsletter, get one. I will share with you some of the stuff here briefly. Marcy Boone had foot surgery today. Did you not? Okay. My problem was always when the anesthesia wore off. That was my problem. Remember Marcy. Continue that. Shelley Gann will be having quadruple bypass surgery on January the 15th. So that's a pretty serious matter. Yeah. So what, David? The 20th? Okay, the 15th's in here, so for y'all here and out there in viewing land, change that to the 20th. Gabby Lowe had her 5th and hopefully final ear surgery today. Ambria McGregor, we've been praying for her as a 16-year-old was in a car accident. She had a CT scan, shows that some...
She got her MRI this afternoon. They don't know the results yet, but she tolerated it just fine. They have to lay flat and still.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't think she could, but she did. So they're hoping to find about that. Her blood pressure is stable. She still has a temperature, but she's very stable right now. So we're just praying that that trend continues.
Good deal.
She does have brain damage.
Kathy, some of you asked me about her. Kathy Moody, Cindy's sister. She's in Lebanon Health and Rehab now in room 107A. And Jackie Thompson had his brain arteriogram on Friday. It went well. Still going to have to consult with a neurologist to figure out how to go forward with his treatment. We do need to continue to remember the Jordan family in our prayers. And Caitlin, Jonathan, help me, the babysitter, Caitlin Barrett. Remember her in our prayers as well. Anybody else who didn't make the news cut off the wire? Chris, you want to lead us in a prayer before Stan leads us in a song?
$464. Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore
I suppose I better get my Bible. If you'd like to read along with me, my devotional tonight is going to be from Luke chapter 2. I'm going to start in verse 25 in just a minute. You singing that song. We went to Tucker's last day at Tucker's Crossroads. They had a Christmas musical in the gym. And, well, the gym's a loud place anyway. And so they had all the kindergartners all the way up to, I guess it's 8th grade at Tucker's Crossroads. I didn't know Tucker's Crossroads had a band, but apparently they do. There's 5 of them. There were 2, I think it maybe is a xylophone, maybe? No, ding, ding, ding. And had a slide trombone man, which was pretty cool. I don't know what the little things are that look like a little mini tuba, but they had 2 of them. But anyway, what's it called? No, it wasn't a French horn. I know what those are. Is that what it is? I think maybe Brady Palmer played one of those at Vanderbilt. I think. Anyway, did you too? Anyway, yeah. Well, yeah. Cindy took some pictures, but anyway, I just thought it was pretty cool. Of course, the kids, as they were saying, you couldn't hardly understand anything because we're in the gym. And boy, normally you sing a few Christmas carols. You feel pretty. I was just ready to get out. It was really, really loud and obnoxious. Some of the kids think the louder they sing, the better it is. And there's some adults here, frankly, at Berea that feel the same philosophy because I heard them. But loud's not necessarily better. So no, I'm not. Everybody has to make their joyful noise. Sometimes don't be so noisy. I'm going to. This time of year, everybody's minds seem to be geared towards Jesus and His birth. And Kevin's mentioned it before, and I'll just reiterate it. Instead of us trying to polarize and, make a distinction so much now, we just need to be thankful that there is at least a time of year where millions of people at least have one day a year that their thoughts are geared a little bit more toward the spiritual instead of the physical. So we should be thankful for that. I think we sometimes miss opportunities in that regard. I want to read. I love this story here. There are 2 characters I'm going to read about, and the thing that I want us to talk about just for a few minutes, it's these 2 people. There's a man and a woman, which I think is not by chance. I think the Holy Spirit, through inspiration, deliberately picks both sexes here to illustrate the fact that waiting on God. If you're waiting on God, if you wait on Him, you'll see Him. He'll make sure that you get to see Him. Now, I'm not going to say we're like Anna and Simeon, but I will say, in my life, there have been times when I've waited, whether I wanted to or not, and I have seen God. He's shown Himself to me in different ways, maybe through other people, maybe through events that have taken place in my life. It could be a tragedy. It could be something that's good that happens to you. But God will show Himself to you if you wait. Verse 25, now this was right after Jesus has been circumcised in keeping with the law of Moses on the 8th day. His parents are there and have presented Him. Verse 25, now there was a man in Jerusalem called Simeon. He was a righteous and devout. He was waiting for the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Spirit was upon him. It had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit that he would not die before he had seen the Lord's Christ. Moved by the Spirit, he went into the temple courts. When the parents brought the child Jesus to do for him what the custom of the Lord required, Simeon took him in his arms and praised God, saying, Sovereign Lord, as you have promised, you now dismiss your servant in peace. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all people, a light of revelation for the Gentiles and glory for your people Israel. Simeon was a prophet, obviously, and a man that had been waiting to see Jesus Christ. And I won't go into all the details. How did he know this little baby was Jesus? Obviously, he had been given some foreknowledge. This was even before Jesus' circumcision here. It's funny, too, that Simeon, a Jew, talks about in verse 32 that he's a revelation to the Gentiles. all of the things, we could have a whole lesson or series of lessons just on what Simeon says in these just few passages here. Verse 33 says, the child's father and mother marveled at what he said about him. Then Simeon blessed them and said to Mary and his mother, this child is destined to cause the falling and rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be spoken against, so that the thoughts of many hearts will be revealed, and a sword will pierce your soul also. Again, we could talk about that a lot. There's a lot to be said there. There was also a prophetess, Anna, the daughter of Phanuel, the tribe of Asher. She was very old. She had lived with her husband 7 years after her marriage, and then was a widow until she was 84. She never left the temple, but worshiped night and day, fasting and praying. Coming up to them at that very moment, she gave thanks to God and spoke about the child to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. When Joseph and Mary had done everything required by the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee to their own town of Nazareth. The child grew and became strong and was filled with wisdom, and grace of God was upon him. As I said, we could talk about, there's so much in that. But what I want us to think about tonight is this. Waiting on God, or waiting for God and His providence or things to work out in your life, or just for God to maybe to reveal Himself to you. If you're like me, there have been times in my life when I felt like I was closer to God than others. There have been times, like some of David's Psalms, where I felt like God was far away from me, and other times when I feel like He was close. But these two people right here, and I'm so thankful that we have these two examples, the Bible plainly says they were old, they were up in years. In fact, it's even said that they were waiting to see Jesus in order to die. They were waiting to see Him just so they could die in peace. I wonder today if we have that same kind of mindset. You know, are we so devout and so devoted to Jesus Christ that now that we've seen Him, that we can just, that's good enough, we can go. The lesson's yours tonight. If you're waiting on the Lord, I believe this with all my heart. If you're waiting and you're truly, truly honest in your heart, you will see Him. And I believe you'll see Him in this life. It may not be in His presence like this, but I believe you'll see Him here, and definitely in the life to come. If you need to come, do so now as together we stand and sing.
Have thine own way, Lord.
Have thine own way. Thou art the potter.
I am the clay. Mold me and make me after thy will. While I am waiting, yielded and still. Have thine own way, Lord. Have thine own way. Search me and try me, Master, today. Whiter than snow, Lord, wash me just now, as in thy presence humbly I bow. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. For my being, absolute sway. Fill with thy Spirit, till all shall see Christ only always, living in me. We're done.
I don't remember somebody. I just reintroduced myself. But might as well. Yeah. All right. Let's go over to 1 Peter. I got these bookmarks at the Van Gogh exhibit, and they're too big from a Bible. I like them, but too big. That's all I could afford in the gift shop. Well, I got a pair of socks, though. I got y'all some. Yeah, they were on sale. I got me some Starry, Starry Night socks. They're pretty cool. I'm going to start. I'm going to try to start where I left off last week. Let me back up because I kind of stopped in an odd place. I'm going to start back in verse 6. For those of you who weren't here last week, when basically Peter's going to continue his thoughts here as far as suffering and how we should still have hope and faith, even in our suffering. Also, we're going to kind of drift over back into James and backtrack because some of this sounds exactly like some of the stuff James said. So if you'd like to read along with me, we'll stop, come back, rehash some of this. Verse 6, 1 Peter chapter 1. In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. These have come so that your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may be proved genuine and may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. Though you have not seen him, you love him, even though you do not see him now. You believe in him and are filled with inexpressible and glorious joy, for you are now receiving the goal of your faith, salvation of your souls. It's back all the way up there. You can go back to James chapter 1, verse 2 and 3. In fact, I will read that real quick, and then we'll jump right back into 1 Peter, because this sounds just exactly, back up, and you can read it or just listen to me read. This is James chapter 1. It sounds like some of the same stuff. We've already been through James about a month or so ago. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work so that you may mature and be complete, not lacking anything. What kind of, when you think about grief, in fact, Peter says here specifically that you're going to have grief. There are going to be times that aren't pleasant. Recently, a little over a month ago, lost my dad and miss him. I don't know that I grieved like I did the first week or so. Some of you have been down that road already. Dad was 94 years old, had him a long, long time. Some of you, I know my wife, she lost her dad when she was 11. So I did learn this a long time ago. If you don't get anything else tonight's lesson, get this. It's never wise to compare sorrows or grief, because everybody grieves and everybody has sorrow on their own terms and on their way. So don't get into the traps and, so-and-so did this. Don't do that, because everybody's different and everybody suffers and grieves differently. So don't do that. But grief is something that Peter says that it's going to come our way. In fact, he even goes so far as to say, without grief, you can't be perfected. You can't become the person God would have you to be. Is it possible, this is my question, is it possible to be a faithful Christian and not suffer? Where did that come from? Ah, yes, the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. No. Now, we talked about this, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse because we talked about this a lot when we were studying James. There are different things that we suffer, and the difference between a trial and a temptation. I'm not going to go back to that again. But grief is something we all suffer, and it's not necessarily something that's sinful that the devil throws out there, but if you're enduring something like the loss of a loved one or someone who's seriously ill, or could be any number of that thing, the devil can use that against you to turn your faith, which is strange because Peter and James both says it's the grief, I'll read it again, in that you greatly rejoice, sounds like a reiterance of what James said, though now for a little while you may have to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. Then verse 7, these have to come so that your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes though even refined through fire, may be proved genuine and may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. Does Peter say it's in order for us to be a faithful Christian with strong faith that we have to suffer? Yeah. Now, how about this? How many of you, maybe, and again, you can get on your device or you can old school TV or radio. How many of you have seen a form of gospel preached that says, if you'll just call on the name of the Lord and you become a Christian, then all your problems are taken care of? That is so far from the truth. In fact, the person whose name we wear, you go back to Isaiah chapter 53, how did he describe Jesus? A man well acquainted with sorrow and grief. So that kind of, I think a lot of times, and even members of the church buy into the fake idea, the phony idea, that now that I'm a Christian, everything's going to be smooth sailing. That's just not the case. In fact, you don't even want it to be the case. Because in order to develop the kind of faith that Peter's talking about here, there has to be grief and suffering. It sounds bad, but if you think about the people that I know in my life that have endured, that have suffered great grief and suffering, almost beyond anything I could comprehend, the ones that I've known that have survived that and just keep plugging along, their faith is it's tremendous. And it's something to be imitated and something to observe. And I have even looked towards those people when I'm having a pity party of my own, when things are, little tiny things are going wrong in my life. And there are members here, y'all. There are members right here that have suffered greatly. Loss of family members, health, but are still rock solid, holding the line. And I think it's important for us to recognize people like that. I'm not saying put them up on a pedestal, but I am saying it is important, though, for us to have people like that in our lives. How many of y'all know somebody in your life, just for a moment, and y'all jump on the floor there? It doesn't have to be a family member. It could be a teacher or a coach or coworker that you consider a person of tremendous faith. Who's your person, Janet? Your grandfather? Mine too. Yeah. He loved to sing. I've told you that before. He'd always sing. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, he was a real treat. David, you have your hand up? Yes, she did. Yeah. I knew her well. She sure did. Who else we got? Most of them are going to be parents and grandparents, I assume. Not always. There are faithful members of the Lord's church. Their parents and grandparents weren't exactly the perfect examples. My father, he turned out okay, but I got to tell you, his dad, Papa Mangrum, bless his heart, he wasn't the best parent in the world. Maybe Dad tried to make up for that, but again, apple doesn't have to always fall from the same tree. It's important for us to have people like this, because here's the deal, y'all. When we talk about being close to God and His Son, Jesus Christ, and through Him, but if you're like me, does it help to have somebody flesh and blood that you can look to and talk to every now and then? Because it does me. Little boy praying, there's an illustration about that I heard years ago, and something was going wrong in his life or whatever, and he told his dad when he was having his evening prayers, and his dad was saying, well, you know, Jesus is here, and he's listening to you, and he said, I want somebody I can touch. That may be immature, but I think it's important for us to have enough fellowship with each other that we can strengthen each other. I think it's important for us to be able to do that. The world's going to make sure, especially our kids, see people that will influence them in other ways. I think we need to make sure that we can or surround them with other kinds of folks. It says it makes your faith, it proves it to be genuine. Though you have not seen him, you love him. Even though you're not seeing him now. You think it was easier for Peter and Paul, Paul actually, he didn't get to walk with him, he saw him, but maybe Peter and James, John. Do you ever maybe, and I think maybe Sunday morning we might have something about this, if I understood Kevin correctly. Do you ever envy them and maybe the relationship they had with Jesus? I mean, you got to admit, it'd be pretty cool. Basically, they were on like a cross-country tour. I guess they'd sleep outside sometimes, camp out. They'd find a place for them to stay with somebody else. They'd stay there. But actually pretty cool. For 3 years, these guys got to be just right there next to him. And there's a lot of things the Bible don't record, but they ate with each other, and I'm sure they poked around. And, I think a lot of times we do ourselves a disservice and don't see Jesus sometimes as the man and the friend of these guys. Children, for example, this is the reason I'm pretty sure Jesus had a pretty good personality. The children, they're not turned on by somebody who is the Ebenezer Scrooge type. Children, to be attracted to Jesus, what kind of personality do you think he had? Children pretty sharp. Fun. Loving. Non-judgmental. Funny. I can see Jesus, picking and poking at them and, making them laugh and giggle. I'm telling y'all, the kids would not have responded to him or want to go to him otherwise. They just wouldn't have. Because I've seen enough of kids to know that. Megan, you've been, because sometimes I struggle with that. I've said before, I don't, like with Vacation Bible School or something, they forbid me to even communicate with people this height. Just not. It's just not my strong suit. So we did Vacation Bible School here. Me and Cindy did for years, and she was always the one that kind of took care of the little fellas and just told me what to do. So, hear any stories about those years, I'll be happy to tell my version. But Jesus was that kind of person, and sometimes I envy those guys. But he says here, and again, it's just as true for us, you can see him, I think. That's where my invitation was tonight. You haven't seen him, but you love him. Even though you may not see him now, you believe in him and are filled with inexpressible, glorious joy. For you are receiving the goal of your faith. I'll talk about that at the very end. The salvation of your souls. Can you see, and I said this before, and somebody help me out on this. Can you see Jesus in other people? Yes. Should people see Jesus in you? Yes. There was I saw it really wasn't a bumper sticker, but it was kind of like a cartoon. I might have shared this with you, Weldon, but it was Jesus supposed to be. Don't know what it looks like, but no, over here, and there was this fellow over here who had some kind of shop or store or whatever, and he was talking to Jesus, and he said, Jesus, I think I'm going to put a Christian symbol or a cross on my storefront window. And Jesus says, well, why would you do that, Carl? I said, well, I want everybody to know that I'm a Christian. He said, well, just make sure you do your business dealings right, and maybe that'll tell them. So sometimes, and I've shared with y'all before, I don't think any Christian should be ashamed of their faith. Be careful, though, about wearing it on your sleeve too much, too. Sometimes that's a put-off. People should be able to see Christ in us, not with our bumper sticker and not with something on our storefront window that says Christian owned, but maybe about how we conduct ourselves and live our life. I think maybe that's where Jesus was coming. Yeah, Kevin.
years ago, there was someone that had a religious sticker on their car. And they got mad in traffic and had the windows down and they were cussing and screaming at somebody and threatening. Cop pulled them over. So what do you pull me over for? This is a stolen vehicle. Why do you think this is a stolen vehicle? You got Christian bumper sticker in your car. I just heard what kind of your mouth.
Yeah. Well, I read a story a long time ago. There was somebody that had a bumper sticker on the back that says, "Honk if you love Jesus." Of course, the guy behind him just kept wearing it out, and he did the same thing. Well, don't put it on your car. You going to say something, Gabe?
I would say something. You know, when Jesus met Saul of Tarsus, he started going to Damascus, so there was a spirit. So then the Lord appears to Ananias, and he says, I need you to go to Damascus to the street that's called Straight, where you're going to find Saul there. And he said, oh, well, I've heard you say this about him. He said, I want you to go and talk to him. He said, I must show him many things that he must suffer for my name. What a great recruiter.
Yeah, I'm on board now. Yeah.
And I think about a lot of things we've talked about tonight, and I think about our world and some of the people that I know are hurting tonight. Suffering is common among them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're in Christ or outside of Christ, there are broken hearts, there are shattered dreams, there are obstacles, there are all sorts of things that can absolutely crush you and break your heart. But as Christians, we're going to suffer for His name's sake. We're going to go through things simply because we are Christians. And that takes it to another level because sometimes we fool ourselves into thinking that somehow because we are His child, that He's going to give us special favors, or that He's going to inoculate us so that we're going to be protected and put in a bubble and we won't be so bad. When in fact what happens when you come to Christ is we become the enemies of Satan himself. And he will unleash all the power of Christ against us to try to break us. And so I really believe that is part of the ministry of the church. That the Lord puts you in His church. Because not only did He give us the Spirit to live us in Christians, not only is the Word to anchor us in the fortify our faith, but we need each other.
Yes, amen.
Because there are times in which we're going to go through some things, especially not in the Word.
Oh, my word.
No matter how much faith you have, you're not prepared to lose the faith on this.
No.
It's going to knock the tops out of you. And so we want to be good. There's no way. The Christians don't need to go for first step. It's kind of like Job when he was suffering. His friends, the best thing they did was nothing. They laid in sackcloth and mouth set. But sometimes you just need to be present with people and help them to meet the things that they're doing. And not think we've got all the answers and don't think that we have to come up with something that's good to say. Sometimes words don't mean.
It's just so hard sometimes when you're seeing somebody suffer, to want to make things okay, but, I'm like you. Sometimes we, think you can pull out a passage of scripture like you can some kind of medicine out of the medicine box or something, and, well, here's this one, and come on, it just don't work like that. And in fact, when we do things like that, we kind of short sell Jesus Himself. That's not the way the word's supposed to be used, and it wouldn't be rightly dividing it either. I've said this before, it doesn't have anything to do with this, but please, when something like that, don't be one of these people who wades into a grief situation like that and say something like it's God's will or something. Oh, please don't do that. Don't do that. First of all, you don't know that. And it's just an unwise thing to say. Yeah, well, you kind of say. No.
6 months out, I told you this, we were talking about this, 6 months after I was baptized, moved to Bakersfield, the preacher told me, and we were just talking, and said he thought it was a really bad idea to put a Harold Street bumper sticker on your car. And we discussed that,
Mhm.
you know, somebody was passing someone and there was some anger and, you know, so on and so forth. And, you know, Fred in California, got together with some guys before the internet ran out of business, was making t-shirts that had passage of the scripture. And, you know, there would be the temptation of almost hypocrisy. If you're wearing a t-shirt like that, you know, you're either gonna disregard it or you're gonna be so conscious of it that it would not be the real you, I would think. I mean, there would be that.
You better make sure you can live up to it.
Yeah, you better live up to it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. My spiritual maturity level, I'm not going to do that. I don't know. And yours might be more than mine. I don't have any problem, you know, like our young people having, you know, their youth group T-shirts and stuff, and maybe having a passage that kind of is their, I don't know, theme or what it. Yeah, a theme verse. Yeah, that's cool. That's all right, you know. But you got to be real careful about how we exhibit our Christian faith to people in the world. Now, get back again to some of the stuff that the air conditioning just actually come on. I'm cold now. I just took my coat. It did. The air came on. Yeah, I'm getting old. Yeah. Thanks, Tony. I feel better now. I'm gonna share this with you, and I'm going to make it G-rated. I forget things. I've told y'all that. And the older I get, I keep getting worse and worse and worse. This afternoon, my truck wouldn't start, so I charged the battery. I turned it on. I was going to let it run. Well, the dog runs out the back door, and he's up chasing another dog down the street. Tucker comes out the door barefooted, and I'm trying to take in Me's other grandma. It's just a mess. So I end up getting in my car. Well, I leave, or it's a truck. And I've left it running before for like 2 or 3 hours. So I get down the road and I think about it. I do remember that. I called Cindy. I said, check to see if my truck's running. Well, it was. So she went and turned it off. Of course, Tucker, the whole time, he's got to know what's going on. And I said, listen. I said, man, I don't even remember where I peed last. I used the bathroom last. And he said, oh, I do. You were outside with the dog. And so, yeah. He's my boy. The feel good. He talks about the goal of our faith. What is the goal of your faith? Salvation? Heaven? Why are we here tonight? You know, a lot of people tonight, hey, it's not as bad tonight as it's going to be tomorrow night, evidently. But I was, you know, pretty cozy there with my little dachshund in front of my little electric fake fireplace. Felt pretty good, but here I am. What is that our only goal? It should be our primary goal. What other goal should we have? Yeah, it's hard to go to heaven and not take somebody with you. That's pretty tough. Salvation of other people. You know, this time of year, and I know Kevin's headed up a lot of programs and stuff. Taking care of people's physical needs too, y'all. That's the basics of the gospel. Taking care of people if they're hurting, they're sick, their family's hungry, making sure they're taken care of. That's we're supposed to be doing that kind of stuff. We're supposed to be looking at that kind of stuff. What else would be a goal? I think that's one that we probably fall down on the most. Back where Kevin was taking us down the road a minute ago, and I can't identify with the Jordans. I can't. But there are some things, though, that I have experienced in my life that caused me grief and sorrow that I can identify with. And I'm not going to necessarily run somebody down because I know they're experiencing something like that, but I will let them know that, and here's the deal, if we're close enough as a family, they will already know that, you know, Lee and Cindy, they've had that kind of problem. You know, you might, pretty good resource person if you want to try to go talk to them. Or just make yourself available to people. And again, I think collectively as the Lord's church, we really fail there. We really do. not bearing one another's burdens. You know, we've had lessons maybe on confessing the faults and sins, but there's a big statement about bearing one another's burdens, and there's so many of them. It could be, you know, the death or sickness of a child or a spouse, or loss of a job, or relationships or marital difficulty, or I don't know. It could be any range of things that could happen, and not taking advantage of people that will love and care for you. I do think this, then I'll wind things up. I think a lot of times the reason we don't is we never have really, we talk about being a family and everything, but we never have really cultivated a close enough relationship that we really trust each other enough to do that. And if you don't do that, then no, you're just not gonna take advantage of it. And I get it, you know, if you're going to reveal yourself, some, you know, intimate details maybe of your life, you got to really trust the person you're talking to. I've said before, you know, husbands and wives, they have somebody they're supposed to go to with that. Of course, there could be a problem between the husband and wife, but for single folks and stuff, sometimes it's difficult not to have somebody to bounce things off of. It's been very beneficial to me sometimes. This is just me, and my wife is my first go-to as far as consultation. But if I don't like what she says, I usually go, no. I think men need another man, and I think women need another woman. That's just another woman, because there's some things, I don't know. There's some things that women-wise, I just don't understand. And even though Cindy tries to explain it to me, I'm like, nope, I don't get it. I do not understand it. You know, sometimes communication between a man and a woman is difficult. I just think that's important. So I think if you're here and you've got men, if you've got a brother you can talk to, and women, if you've got a sister you can talk to, pretty important. I think that's a goal we need to head towards too. And not everybody, you know, even Jesus had friends that were closer to him than others. It's okay to have people that are closer, you know, than others. That's cool. You can't be everybody's best friend. You know, even Tucker started that now. You know, Facebook started this thing. Oh, I have 1,000 friends. No, you don't. No, you don't. You know, they unfriended me. They never knew you. I'm not on Facebook. Cindy is. But again, a friend, I try to get my daughter to understand this, and I keep telling Tucker this. If you can have one friend, you've done well. If you got two, you're extremely blessed. You get past that, you can call them anything you want to, but there's levels there, and you start getting down into the area of just an acquaintance or different. But I think it's important for Christians to have Christian friends. I have people that I was very close to in the workplace. They were not Christian. Make no mistake about that. But we were pretty close, and there were some things that they were pretty helpful on, advice-wise. Usually from the negative side, kind of like, I don't want to do that. After hearing his story, I think maybe I'll steer clear of that one. But if you're like me, and again, it's a sad commentary on the Lord's church as a family. How many of you right now can think of somebody who's not a member of the Lord's church, maybe a co-worker or a schoolmate or whatever, and right now, if something were to happen tonight, I'm talking about bad situation. You could get on the phone and they'd be right just like that. So say what you want, relationships are important, whether you cultivate them in the church or outside the church. So there's some that I'm still cultivate. That's exactly right. There's a fellow, Kevin, I rode around on the airfield in Nashville for 15 years. 8 hours a day, sometimes 6 days a week. Now, and we talk about everything. We saw each other through some rough times. How, if I don't at least halfway make an attempt here to cultivate that, how's anybody going to compete with that? I mean, just by virtue of exposure, this person has an impact on your life, and you do them. So you're right. If you don't, It's we shouldn't expect there to be something there as a family of a close-knit, cultivated relationship if we don't spend any time cultivating it. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And, sadly, people come and go. I look at the audience tonight, I can see maybe 12, 15 people here that were here 20 years ago. People come and go, and I'm not saying right and wrong. There may be reasons for that legitimate, but I don't know. Our families a lot of times anymore, you read about it, I guess that's what our families do anymore too, come and go. But I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be. I think we should show concern there. I'm done. Unless somebody has something else, I'm not going to jump in any further. We'll start next week with verse 10. I believe that's right. Yes. Yeah, David. Yeah. Yeah. I had a little boy one time, and one of the few times they allowed me to teach little people here. And he said, we were talking about getting to heaven and asking questions and stuff, and I was asking him what his question would be. You know what his question was? Well, what about the dinosaurs? I said, well, that's your question. That's a good question. They're around sometime, so you ask it. I think a lot of the questions we have those days when we get there, it won't matter anymore. Okay, or everything will just be revealed. Say what? Well, sure she can. Yeah. And regardless of how you feel, my dogs are going. Yeah, my dog's gonna make it. I gotta have a dog. So I know everybody. Oh, you can't. Dog don't have something. Well, my dog's going. You'd have had a dog like mine. Anybody have anything else? Well, my dog. I love him, but he's terrible. He is. He's awful. But none of my dogs. I guess it's because I'm just not hard enough on them. None of my dogs are very obedient. Yeah, dachshunds. They're rude. They don't. I mean, he knows his name because when I call him to feed him, here he comes. But when he's running down there wanting to dig in the garden or whatever, he's like, yeah. He just does whatever he wants to do. So, but anyway, Mary Catherine's like dachshunds, yeah. No, yeah. They're pretty arrogant. They're funny. Yeah. Well, we got home last Sunday night, and Henry Lee, he's my dachshund now. That's the one we got named. He had pulled we had a Grinch ornament we had on the tree. We had it for a long time. He had pulled that thing off and he chewed it all to pieces. No, my dog's not. Your dog's going to heaven? Oh, no, my dog. Oh. Maybe introduce her to Henry Lee.
We have a neighbor who doesn't believe in Jesus or not, but she ties when her dog died. She tied a blue ribbon around its neck, and she said, I want to recognize my dog when I get to heaven. What?
Maybe the dog will make it and you won't. Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I don't. That's one thing, like I said, whether it's, sorrow and grief. Like I said, when ours got run over that time, wow, hurt my feelings bad. Anybody have anything else? I guess the next time we meet will be Christmas Day, Mr. Scrooge. Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. I understand we have a really special regular service plan. And no Bible school Sunday morning, but we do have Sunday night. Devotional at 5 Sunday night. So you can bring in your new sweaters and such and wear in here and show them off to everybody. That's all we got to talk about. We are going to say a prayer and get out of here. Would you bow with me? Oh, wait a minute. Somebody, Ronnie, did you pick somebody? Closing prayer? You? Okay. Amen.